Hello, everybody. It is that time. I was going to wait till 6:31, but I knew that y'all just would missed us so much from last week. So we wanted to make sure that we were on time to say hello to everyone. This is, as you know, through the eyes of others. You can tell because you see me, you see Lisa K, you see a guest, so you know what time it is. And we want to thank you for taking the time and giving the time and spending your Wednesday evening with us for an hour and just hanging out with, of course, some great, wonderful conversation and being able to look at life lived through the eyes of other people. Through the eyes of others are conversations about the emotional residue that many people are experiencing as a result of watching real life being lived right in front of us, right? Every day. And so what we want to be able to do is see what's happening, but through the eyes of others. We all can shape our own opinions. We all can shape through our own views with conclusions for what we see. But when we use shared vision and see life through the lens of other people, it truly gives us a clearer picture and allows us to escape the bubble of our thoughts and our imaginations, be inclusive of what others see, so we can get a fuller picture of what life really looks like. And so each week I come on with my sidekick and my partner Lisa K, so that we can spend time looking at life through the eyes of others. Lisa K, jump in and say hello to everybody, buddy.
All right. Well, happy Wednesday to everybody, and glad to see folks are coming on. Please remember to let us know you're there on the conversation on the chat, even if you're just saying hello. But we would love for you, as the night progresses, for you to ask questions or make comments. We love that. We'll read them and talk about them, but at least let us know you're out there in the Restream world and you're with us and watching. So we do appreciate you guys. I'm real excited about tonight. I've been excited since yesterday when one of my favorite people in the whole world, Mr. Bill Cruz, agreed to come on and with us tonight. And I just love him to death. And I'm excited for everybody to see why I love Mr. Bill Cruz. So I hope everybody will share this tonight on your social media and get the word out. I think tonight is going to be very interesting. We've never had anybody on like Mr. Bill tonight, and his story and what he's going to bring to the table, I think, is going to really enlighten all of us and help us all just learn so much more about our world that we haven't considered, or maybe hadn't considered in a while, at least since the pandemic. But this is a beautiful dialogue that we have each Wednesday, bringing awareness to through the eyes of others, being able to see the walk and talk and what they've experienced, to bring awareness of trauma, but most importantly, vicarious trauma. And those of us who walk with people every day or take care of people, we know that if we don't take good care of ourselves, it can pile on, and vicariously we will take on their trauma, their pain. And if we do too much of that, it changes our whole worldview, and we're not as effective. And it's just the cost of loving people. And I would pay that every day of my life. It is the cost, but we got to be aware about it. We've got to figure out what to do about it. And Aaron does a great job after we dialogue for a while, giving us some hope, because there'll be some things said tonight that you'll go, that's me. Oh my gosh, that's me. So hang in there with us, because what we have to say at the end is very simple, but very effective. And those of us who are in this situation right now, we've got to be aware of it and take care of it. So welcome. We got some folks chiming in now. And so we just keep chiming in. Let us know you're there. Tell us hello. But please join in the conversation as well. So I'm looking forward to tonight. It's a unique night for us at here through the eyes of others. So stay tuned.
Thank you so much, Lisa K. And so now I want to bring on our special guest, and that's who he is. And he's just joined us for conversation, and hopefully not for the last time. Hope we don't run him away. And this is Mr. Bill Cruz. And I'm just meeting Bill today, but Lisa talks about you all the time, Bill. She put you in the category of one of her favorite people. And so that's a biggie. That's a biggie. And so there you sit on that perch as one of Lisa K's favorite people. And it is great to have you on. And if you would, Bill, say hello to whoever we have watching and those that will be coming on, and just give us a snippet about yourself, and we'll dig in and see life through your eyes in just a moment. Bill, without any
All
further
right.
ado.
Well, thank you, Aaron. Thank you. And thank you, Lisa K, too, because she's one of my favorite people, too. Thanks for having me tonight. I was real excited about being a part of this. I think you guys do some wonderful work. I like your mission, your idea of what you do, and helping people. And as you say, see life through others' eyes. I don't think we do enough of that. So I give you applaud for doing this. As for me, my name is Bill Cruz. I'm a business relations representative. I work for the state of North Carolina in a program called Vocational Rehabilitation Services. I've been with them for 20 years. Prior to that, I worked in mental health in Winston-Salem, North Carolina for 12 years. And then 10 years before that, I worked in a sheltered workshop for the developmental disabilities in Virginia, which is where I'm originally from. Um, I was I was raised by two deaf parents. Deaf meaning they used sign language and not verbal communication. And I think tonight I'll share a little bit more about that with you and my experiences of having deaf parents and learning two different languages and how to live in a world with two different languages. So I hope you gain some knowledge and some insight as to how that affects people through their life. Um, so that's a little bit about me.
Oh, Bill, thank you so very much. And we're going to actually take that and build. We're going to have great conversation through that. I want to say hi to Tia and Aaron, two team members who are on. And I just want to, they're at least a groupies, but I just want to say hello to them as they're hanging out with us, two of my wonderful team members. Also, before we begin and as we begin, as Lisa said, please make sure you're sharing on your social media platform. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And I think the pollen is evil. Now, with all that said, let's dig in, Bill, and have some fun. And what I want to do, Bill, and this is my thought, as Lisa told me so much about you over the last few days. When we think of bilingual, right, in our culture, the first thing we generally think of is Spanish and English, right? I mean, that's just our go-to because of how we are shaped as a nation,
Sure.
as far as population. And then if I'm thinking about my time in the military and the army, and so many people were bilingual and they were English and German, you have a whole different experience being bilingual that many of us would not consider, that many of us would not even, it wouldn't come to our imagination or thought. If we had a 10-point test that we had to take, we simply would not answer the answer that you would. Bill, you're bilingual. And if you would, tell us what that looks like. And let's begin talking about how you became bilingual and what that means for you.
Okay. Thanks, Aaron. Well, having deaf parents, as I said, that don't use verbal communication, rely on sign language. And you may see me use sign as I'm talking, but it's okay. That's to give you an idea and an example. So I'd usually explain it this way. My first language was sign language instead of English. And that's because my parents, speaking sign language, use sign. They would make sounds and they would mouth words to us. But when you're deaf, your voice, your hearing and speech discrimination is not like your normal speech and hearing discrimination that you and Lisa and myself and everyone else hears and experiences every day. They utter noises, and it's not always easy to make out. But when you're around that for a long period of time, you get used to it. And I could understand what my mother would say to me. My father didn't have a very good voice. My mother could talk a little better than my father. But speaking about language, being bilingual, I learned sign language first. And then as we got older, my grandparents made sure that we learned English to the best of our ability. I have an older brother, just the two of us, and we struggled a little in the beginning, I would say, with trying to speak correct and proper grammar, because in sign language, the language itself is not, it's not formed in a English based language. It's called American Sign Language, and they leave out all the appropriate grammar, and so that could be a struggle at times. But as we were growing up, um, having to speak for my parents in a hearing world versus a deaf world, we were relied on quite a lot to interpret and translate for our parents, um, because they couldn't hear. Now, with my father being a printer by trade, that was his job. He always kept a pad and a pen in his shirt pocket, and he would use a pen and paper to communicate with the hearing world. That is, anybody that would take the time to do it. And trust me, in society, some people don't have the patience for that. It just depends. You know, you don't know who you're going to meet. You don't know who has the tolerance level. You don't know the discomfort and the awkwardness, and how the hearing can sometimes be a little startled by someone that is deaf, because they first thing they do is they freak out. They don't know, they feel like they can't communicate with you. They don't use common sense sometimes, thinking that paper and pen might, just use paper and pen and you can communicate back and forth that way. That's just an example. I mean, not everybody was like that, but there were occasions that would come up. Um, I had an advantage, I guess you'd say, because I was able to sign and I was able to talk and hear. So I could communicate with two worlds. And there's so many other elements to this as far as being bilingual. Um, as I said, it is an advantage, but it can also be very lonely too. Um,
How so, Bill?
well, with that said, where I grew up was in a small town. There were other deaf there, and the deaf community is a very close knit community, because they have their own culture and they have their own style and their own way of communicating, right, with sign language. So naturally, they gravitate together and develop friendships and relationships and lifelong friendships. So um, I don't want to say the hearing world shunned them and shut them out, but at some point there were times where it takes a lot of effort if you're hearing and you don't know sign language. It takes a lot of effort and patience and time to communicate with someone that doesn't speak the same language that you do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably, that could go, say, for anyone speaking for Spanish, French, German. We all get caught. Sometimes we might get stuck in a situation where we're with somebody and we can't speak the same language. It's easier to walk away and just, oh, okay, well, I don't know what he's saying. And you just walk away. You know what I'm saying? Some people do that. It just depends on the person. But at the time I was growing up, that was the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And through the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, and the 90s. Okay. And now here we are in 2000. I want to say there was a lot of discrimination. There was a lot of oversight. Um, there was a lot of obstacles and barriers that my parents had to go through just to get what we call equal accessibility for them. Um, that could lead into another topic if you like. I mean, I could go in so many different directions right now with that. But for the most part, speaking two languages, yeah, I guess you could say it's special. I am fortunate that I'm able to fit in the hearing world and the deaf world both, because I can talk to both worlds. But I've always said this throughout my life. I've always kind of felt different than most people, uh, and that means I've never really felt like I fit into either world. That I'm kind of in between,
Mhm.
and the only people that really know what that means are other children of deaf parents that kind of feel isolated and alone, and not everybody understands what they're going through. Does that make sense?
It does. It does, Bill. I think it's one, I'm enjoying this so very much, and so many things are coming into just I'm processing so many things.
Right.
Because as I hear you, I'm picturing not just the discrimination and the isolation. I'm also picturing a culture that is unique to itself,
It is.
but it's often misunderstood. And as a black man in America, I'm hearing you describe growing up black in America.
Yes.
And so, and then I'm also thinking about also, Bill, that when we talked about when you said that you were in both worlds, right, and just trying to be understood in this part of this world and in this world. Honestly, took me to church because
Yeah.
my pathway to recovery was church. But the reality of it is that there are so many things about the wellness and recovery culture that church really doesn't understand. And
Right.
so there is this gap in between
Hmm.
the two, right? And so you're just saying so many things that I think many people can resonate with. And also, you really helped me, and I'm going to get back to you in just a second. But you got something going here, and that is, I am 62, and I have found myself, and everybody, and Lisa can attest to this. I just understand. I just understand us as people when we remove the barriers and the labels. I get us as people. But it is now at the age of 62, on whatever date is, that I truly understand that the deaf community and the hearing community speak two different languages, and being able to talk about you coming on and then spending a couple of minutes with you before this, I really finally get it, right? Those are
Yeah.
two different languages. And it's
Yes.
not, and so we oftentimes capture people in deaf community, and we look at the fact that they're deaf, but we don't realize there's a language unto their culture that
Right.
is specific to them, but it is also how they articulate and survive and move and thrive. So I just want to tell you, got me really going on this one. So I want to ask you this about
Sure.
the culture. You talked about your grandmother and how she helped you and your brother learn English.
Yes.
And so she became a bridge. Did you and your brother ever serve as a bridge? Because you spoke both languages. Did you serve as a bridge within your family or within community because you had the ability to bridge?
Yeah, and that's a great question, Aaron. I could elaborate a little bit more on that too. When we were growing up, of course, we had aunts, uncles, cousins, family, right? Your extended family. So mom and dad would take us to our grandparents, our aunts and uncles, and we'd have family reunions and get-togethers. Guess who was the interpreter?
Mm,
Guess who couldn't always go play and do what he wanted to do?
mm,
Guess who got stuck sitting there with his mom and dad explaining things to their relatives? And I'm not complaining. And that is certainly I hold no grudges against that to my parents or my family. But it's so it's so overlooked and so misunderstood and not realized at the time you're in it, that I missed out on some things just because I had to sit there with mom and dad and be the go-between, as you say, between their family and them. And then think about it, even and when I wasn't there were a lot of times my parents were just kind of left to themselves, and the hearing world's all around them, talking, enjoying, laughing, jovial, just what you do in social settings. And mom and dad would be there by themselves, and occasionally maybe somebody drift over and talk to them. Um, I'm not trying to paint a really pitiful picture here,
mm.
but it was reality at times, and those were some experiences that I had to encounter. keep in mind, I have an older brother. He's 4 years older than me, and he never, ever had the interest in the deaf part of my parents, the culture, the sign language. He only learned just very little basic signs to communicate enough with, and that was it. He never showed an interest. And that also goes to prove that as individuals, we're all different. Just because he has deaf parents, he didn't feel a sense of I don't know, responsibility, loyalty, consideration. I'm just more of a conscientious kid, I suppose. I don't know. We're all gifted in some way, shape, or form. We
Right.
all bring something to the table that's different. But for him, he didn't like it. It made him uncomfortable. And you have to think about it this way too. And I'm sure you and Harris Teeter, maybe Lisa, you're over at TJ Maxx. Here I am at Chick-fil-A, and here comes some deaf people in the door, and they're signing. And what does all the hearing people do? What's the first thing they do? Eyes right on them. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Everybody looks at it because it's unfamiliar. It's kind of an oddity. They don't see it every day. Well, I contribute that to my brother. He couldn't stand to be in the limelight. He didn't like eyes on him. He didn't want people watching him. Therefore, he just shunned it. He just didn't want to take part in it. Now he would if he absolutely had to, but he was so uncomfortable and he wasn't very good at it. So my and me being the youngest, I don't know. I'm just telling you, I think mom and dad just took me aside. I don't know. I don't know how I got involved, but I did when I was little, and I've been there ever since. So one of us took on the responsibility. You follow me?
Yeah.
And yeah, I've always been the one that did the calls, the interpreting, the go between for mom and dad when they needed it. I
So
was always
as so Bill, as you're growing, you're maturing, how did you utilize this, the way you grew up, the household you grew up in, the uniqueness for you, as for three of us on the screen, that would be very unique, right?
right.
How did you use that as you moved out of your mom and dad's house, began to grow your career, grow your life, your relationships? How did you utilize what happened and the household you came from to build the life you wanted to live?
Good question. Thank you for asking that one. I happened to develop. I met some friends in Virginia years ago. I was in my 20s, I think. Um, she worked for a sheltered workshop. Back then, it was a workshop for the developmental disabilities population. It's a day program. And she was a teacher, instructor there. Well, in that workshop, they taught vocational skills to the developmentally disabled. And she approached me one day, and she knew my parents were deaf, and all that. She knew where I came from, that I knew sign language. She goes, "Would you be interested in coming to work here?" And I said, "Well, it depends. What do you do?" I wasn't real familiar with it at the time. That was 1982, by the way. I can remember the year. So one thing led to another. I talked to the manager, and I said, I'll give it a couple of weeks. I'll see what it's like. Well, I think, well, keep in mind, deaf is considered a disability in the eyes of the federal government. So it is one disability among many others. So I think the way the manager and my friend looked at me was like, well, you've grown up with parents that have a disability. So who better could fit in this day program that we're working in than somebody with your expertise? And anyway, started working there, and I never left. I wound up working there 9 years, and I worked my way up from just a day program instructor up into a production manager. And then I kind of went as far as I could. And then life happens, and I decided to look for another career. So I moved from there to Winston-Salem and got a job at mental health. But I'm leading all this up to what got me there, what afforded me this opportunity. It was my background growing up with deaf parents and knowing sign language, having that exposure. Um, and keep in mind, through those years, we went through all kinds of trainings, certifications. So I grew as I worked. It wasn't like, an innate ability, although I feel like I have that too at some point. But, you know, you learn through the years of how to work with people and within confines and rules and policies of how to deal with people in social programs and all that. All that built up, built my career, and it's led me to where I am now. And that was 30 years ago. So didn't mean to jump around here, but I didn't want to
No,
go into all the years. But
you're doing fine. You're doing absolutely fine, and we can follow that track and be able to
yeah,
see a connection of your origins and how that connected to all of those things. Before we turn it over to Lisa Kay and let her do her Lisa thing that she does so well, I want to ask you this: looking at and considering COVID-19, our year and change in pandemic, worldwide pandemic, the deaf community, what was different for COVID for them, if anything? How do you know and understand that? How is information conveyed? How does the deaf community deal with COVID? Is it any
COVID.
different than any other community? Talk to us.
Well, the one thing that I've experienced working with the deaf population that I do at vocational rehab is keep in mind, they're just as fearful of it as Aaron, Lisa, myself, 6 feet apart, um, social distance, masking, sanitizing. I mean, all the things we've been, instructed to do to keep ourselves safe. But the one thing you don't realize is that the deaf community, when you're talking to someone deaf, part of American Sign Language is to follow body language,
Mm,
facial expressions, for one. Now, when you've got a mask over your nose and mouth, you're only looking at this part of your face, or you're only looking at this part, right? They can't see your facial expression and you're communicating, for one thing. It's been a struggle, and I've had a lot of deaf people tell me that that's been real tough for them to communicate with other deaf people.
like this.
Right.
All you
Yeah,
get
I
is
don't have my mask here, but thank you, Aaron. Good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So all I can see is your eyes and your eyebrows. Now maybe your eyebrows will tell me one thing, but it doesn't tell me everything that the face does.
yeah.
So that's what the deaf have been telling me, that it's been a struggle for them. And keep in mind, there are some deaf people that read lips. Not everybody does. Not all deaf people do. But with the mask, that's a barrier to reading lips too. Um, the information dissemination for the deaf community, believe it or not, has been good. They keep each other informed. We do have other agencies, community agencies that reach out to the deaf community to inform them, to make sure they know where to go get vaccines and go to get tested. So I'll have to step up and say I've been real impressed these last year with North Carolina State. Anyway, they've done a good job of getting information out to these people. But I will say it's just as normal for them as it is for us. We all have the fear. Some of us don't want to go out. They don't want to ride the bus. They don't want to ride. They want to stay home. It's been a struggle just as much for them. Yeah. And real quick, with my line of work of trying to help them find employment, that's really been a challenge. A lot of my clients need one-on-one assistance with help on a computer, online applications, one-on-one. I can't provide that with my job right now. Everything is virtual like you guys are doing.
Right.
So it's kind of hard to do an online application with someone on the computer with you when you need them with you to be able to do that. You know what I'm saying? So it's been tough. It's been very tough. That's a good example that I can think of.
Those are some of the things, as you ended that we don't consider from the community of helps when we say all you got to do is go on the computer and it sounds simple for me, right?
Right.
And the intent as well, but the
Yeah.
reality of it is you just set somebody up for a tough time. Yeah,
A tough time. Yeah.
Bill, I'm gonna turn it over to my sidekick, Lisa K.
All right.
And Lisa K, tell us what you're hearing. Check in with our chat family, our community, and without further ado, you're on, Lisa.
All right. Thank you. Well, we do have some folks chatting with us. Miss Ashley Fenton is on.
All
She
right.
says hello to two of my favorite people, Lisa K and Bill, and she loves us.
Oh, love you too.
I'm so glad she was able to pop on with us tonight. And Miss Kim is with us, Miss Kim Porter. She works with us as well. She is the front desk. She is the one that if you call, she will answer and get you to the right people. But she says hello to everybody and that she finds this information and knowledge very helpful. And Mr. Eric is in the house with us tonight. He's also works with Promise Resource. He says he never ever thought of that from this perspective. Wow, just had not thought about it. Yep. A lot of people are going to say that after tonight. And Ashley's just saying hi with hearts again. So thank you, Ashley. We love you too. We'll have to get Ashley on here with us one night.
All right.
We got Karen in the house too, sending us hearts. And will y'all come on? Let us know you're there. Send us some love. And as we move along, if you have questions for Bill or comments for Bill or for us, please do so. We'll do our best to answer them and just keep it coming. Wow, Bill, you shared a lot of your story I already know. We walked a lot of walks together, took a lot of back in the day smoke breaks together, and went out to lunch together, and all of those things we did. And you taught me a lot. And I know that when I came to vocational rehabilitation to meet you, I began my master's program in vocational rehabilitation. And one of my experiences that I don't know if you remember that you even helped me with, but when I got started, my very first day there, I didn't do any virtual classes. They were all live for me. I was that old woman. I had to be in the classroom, right? So, but one of the things that I experienced was that, when I went to Gardner Webb first, that the deaf were in my classrooms, and I didn't realize it at first. And the very first day of school, someone came in and said they needed someone to take notes for the deaf, and they went through the procedure and showed us the paper and what would be required, and asked for volunteers when nobody raised their hand. And so I didn't know a lot about it myself, but I couldn't stand the thought. I thought, well, I can barely take notes for myself. Oh my gosh, what responsibilities. But I still didn't know who was deaf in the class. So it was the first day, but I remember I raised my hand and I said, I'll do my best. And so like three of my classes, I took notes for the deaf. So that day, every class I went in, and they needed that volunteer, and I said, well, might as well. And they came to me after each class and thanked me. And I began, after I took my notes and turned them in, they started coming around me more, and I got to see who was deaf. I got to meet them. They invited me. They tried to teach me sign language, but they ended up writing a lot. But they invited me to lunch with them. I didn't understand at the time until you explained it to me what an honor that was, that they trusted me. They trusted me. And in that lunch, they shared with me a lot, and they were determined to teach me sign language. And they taught me a lot of sign language stuff that we can't really sign because bad words and all kinds of stuff. They were funny. Oh my
Everybody
gosh.
wants to know the bad words. Everybody.
Yes, and they were younger too. So oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it was amazing because I was an older student. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I just remember the sadness I felt that day when nobody wanted to help. And when you talked about people not wanting to take the time,
Take the time.
I witnessed that myself. But I also, because I did it, I wasn't the best note taker, and they laughed a lot at my words and my spelling because there wasn't no spell check on that paper we had to write on, right? I'm sure that's better now. But I just remember they gave me my own sign for my name, which was, L over the heart. And so when I would approach, they'd introduce me as Lisa. And you also taught me what a special thing that was for deaf to give you your own sign for your name. And so because of that, you helped me really understand a lot. You also taught me about the culture and how different the culture is, which helped me understand some of their behaviors or how they handle things were so different, and that I might see it as aggressive, or maybe they were being rude. But you did such a great job explaining to me about that, and it's not at all. They just don't understand. They don't have the tone. They don't hear tones of people's voices, and so their language and how they express themselves are just their own. We may perceive it to be totally different because of how they're signing or approaching something, but it doesn't mean what we think it means.
Right.
And so that began my journey of getting to know those. And I want to thank you for that, because they were some amazing people and really were my only friends. I think because I hung with them. Yes, I hung with them all the time. They were teaching me sign, and they laughed a lot. Laugh, because I would mess it all up. But they knew what I was trying to say. I think people also thought I was deaf or was whatever. And so I saw that firsthand. The people don't want to take the time. And you've said that several times in your conversation. That had to be painful for you, even as a kid and growing up, until, even in your, as an adult, to see people approach your parents, realize they're deaf and do that, or just give them the very minimum information they need. So how have you dealt with that? What did it do to you as a young person, and how have you dealt with it over the years? Because to me, that's very significant. Because I know how I feel about my parents, and I feel like if my parents are being shunned, I'm about to step in. I can't handle it because that's my mama, that's my daddy. I can't imagine every moment you not knowing how they will be perceived. So how was that like for you, and have you dealt with it over the years?
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing all that, Lisa. Well, needless to say, all my life I've been an underdog supporter. And maybe that started from childhood. I always go for the underdog. I can tell you, I won't go into a lot of detail. My own experiences growing up with deaf parents, I was bullied. So I don't tolerate bullies. Not very well. I guess you'd say I could get real defensive sometimes for mom and dad and feeling somewhat protective of them. I'll be honest with you, I've struggled my lifetime with mom and dad as being trying to be neutral and being a caregiver. It's really tough to take that hat off and then put this hat on to do one thing, and then you take another hat off and you have to do something else. In other words, you're split. It was a struggle, I would say. And yeah, I mean, I remember kids in school, albeit Billy, I was called when I was growing up. His mom and daddy's deaf and dumb. You ever heard that one? Deaf and dumb? Oh, hails bells. My daddy did not like that one. He would get real defensive. He says, no, 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 no. I'm deaf. So we find ourselves having to correct people, teach people, and you try to do it in a civil way. But yeah, there's anger. I've had anger issues too, at times with it. My brother, I think too, getting back to the brother piece, I think that was one of his issues. He just couldn't handle it. He couldn't handle that because it embarrassed him, made him angry. He felt targeted. So for him, escaping it was the only way he knew how to cope with it. He didn't want to deal with it. So he ran from it. Whereas me, I was exposed to it. Yeah. It wasn't easy growing up that way. No, no, by no means. I heard a lot of, as I say, name calling, being made fun of. But you know, I don't know if this is appropriate, but I just feel it's important to say. And nothing, we all experience things differently. I could remember, I can remember this vividly. We're watching the news, and back in the 60s, the civil rights the civil rights going on the news, the world news would show a lot of horrible treatment to the African American population over the civil rights. And I could remember my father seeing that on TV, and he told me this. He says, that is just horrible. He says, I can relate to how they must feel. And I looked at him like, how could you understand how they feel? But what he meant by that was being oppressed for him being deaf. Blacks were being oppressed for being black. And he says, I can relate some to that. I understand how they must feel, and it's not right. And I've never forgotten that. I've remembered that all my life. And I was just a young kid, in the 60s. I'm old, but I'm just saying, for him to say that, I thought, wow, that was pretty profound. Yeah, but I'm so proud of my parents. They did such a great job. They worked. They both had jobs. They were both successful. They raised a family the best they knew how. They never once asked anybody for a dime. Everything they had, they made and built themselves. I mean, what a legacy. Isn't that what we all want to be? Hey, they were great. They were great. I'm very proud of my parents. I really am, for what they've accomplished and what they contributed. So I hope that answered your question, Lisa.
It did. It definitely did. Bringing awareness. I'm glad you brought up the piece of oppression. We've witnessed that. Even when I was going to college, just the deaf in our classroom not being picked or made to be in their own group in the classroom.
Separated.
They're separated.
Yes.
Because they were deaf, and it was just easier to have one interpreter there.
Yeah.
It didn't allow them the opportunity to sit with the hearing groups to experience, and for us to experience them. Of course, I got to sit with them because I was taking notes. So I had it made.
Right.
But I'm glad you brought that up, and that awareness. The other thing I wanted to bring, and I know we're running out of time, we always do. What it could be like. I just want to bring awareness as an interpreter, especially for your parents growing up. No matter what event you were at with your parents, you did miss out on things, age appropriate things for you. Because when you said reunion, if you went to family reunion, the kids are over here playing ball or whatever they're doing, and all the adults are over here. Well, here's little Billy. So being taken from that had to be tough, but also being involved in adult conversations
At an early age,
at a very
yes.
early age, trying to interpret to other adults what you think you're hearing, right? Because they're relying on you, the kind of pressure, but also just being in those adult conversations at a young age, just bringing awareness of what that could be like. And I know you made mention that, if you didn't go or you weren't there, what it might be like for your parents. And I know they were very proud and grateful for you and expressed that many times over, but because of your willingness, they did get to enjoy and understand things, but it also was a cost for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not only being taken away from the kids and play or whatever, but now you're totally doused with adult conversation. It could have been about world problems. It could have been about Aunt Sally over here. It could have been about anything. So how did that affect you being involved in adult conversations at so young of an age and really didn't have an option?
Yeah. I'm not going to say I resented it, but I was also a normal kid. I had my little moments too. I could throw a little tantrum and I didn't want to do this and I don't want to do that. But I will say this, my mother was good. She could see, like, it's okay. You go on and play. Don't worry. We'll be all right. So mom knew, thank God. But she did. She knew when it was time. She knew when it's time that, okay, this is enough. We'll be all right. You go on and play. Enjoy yourself. We'll manage. I think being left out sometimes. Plus, I was the youngest grandchild too. Can you imagine, out of 20?
Wow.
In that particular family, everybody was older than me, so I always got the tail end of the stick.
Well, I do have one thing I want to ask. I'm dying to ask. As a kid, did you ever interpret something wrong to your parents just because you were showing your tail, you're mad? Did you ever pull a trick and not interpret it?
I'm sure.
You better answer this right, Bill. Answer this right, Bill.
Only Lisa would know how to say that. I'm sure I did, but I honestly can't recall.
Okay.
I'm sure I did. Oh yeah, I'm sure. Or I was just too vague, or I would skip it. Oh, y'all don't need to know. And is that fair to them? No. But as a kid, hey, you can't hold me to the fire too much. I'm just a kid, But but no, that's a great question. But no, I always felt protective of mom and dad.
Yeah, I know you all the way. I remember all the issues. Even as they got older, you were there interpreting and making sure people knew how to take care of your parents. Yeah. So even in the later parts of their life, you were there, and that was very special. And all of that was leading, all the things you needed to know. I admire you, Bill, because I've never met anyone like you who were raised by deaf parents and were of the hearing. And so you just have this unique understanding of the culture that people who take sign language in school just to learn sign, they never get that part. So I think it's such a gift, because I know folks who you interpret to they have to know you're different than the average interpreter that went to school and got a degree in it. They have to know that.
I'm sure. I like to think so, but I appreciate you saying that, Lisa.
Yeah, they have to know that. Just the way your body moves and your interpretation of and what you pick up on by their body language. I think you
really important.
Gain that because you lived it, not because you learned it in a book.
Right.
You lived it. So you're keen on it all the time. And that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot. But man, the blessing, I know that the folks that they utilize your skill set to be able to understand and get the information about jobs or life. And the wearing of masks, and a lot of folks do lip read. They're looking at the sign, but they're also reading your lips. I've had some deaf tell sign to me that that is so important.
Yeah.
And I have not thought about through this pandemic what that must be like for people. I know what it was like for me because I follow people's cues by their eyes and their expressions.
Facial,
Like,
yeah,
getting on their
nuances.
nerves.
Yeah, all these
Yeah.
nuances are
Mhm.
real important. Real important. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
one more thing, they do make some of the masks now with a little clear shield. I don't know if you've seen them,
Yeah.
but not all hearing people wear them. Not all
Right.
deaf people wear them. So not everybody has them. It just depends on who you come across. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's been a struggle. It's been a struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just wanted to let you know that Ashley has some words for you. She says, Bill, I've always admired your story and dedication, unconditional love towards your parents and the deaf community.
Oh,
So
thank you.
absolutely,
Thank you,
absolutely.
Ashley. Thank you. Thank you.
But with the vicarious trauma, there's a lot that just rings out to me, Bill. Your understanding of the culture, both cultures, of course, are so, that's your foundation. And I know Aaron's fixing to take us into that, but I just want to bring awareness what that, everything you've said tonight about those cultures, being of both cultures during this pandemic. You did give kudos to North Carolina about coming on television and all that.
Yeah.
But I want others to understand too how much pressure and vicarious trauma that you could have been experiencing by trying to communicate. If they can't get on a Zoom or if they can't understand, and you're having to do the the call, you're actually going through someone that's typing to them your information, and so they can't see you, they can't, all they can do is they're getting this this information. What that was like for you trying to just get through both cultures. You had your own hearing culture, like you said, afraid, and how we all reacted to COVID, but then you had the deaf that you could not communicate with, could not give that encouragement to around jobs and everything that you're working with, what that could have been like. And how did you take care of yourself?
Well, first and foremost, I guess you all know with the pandemic, what do we all rely on the most now than we did before pandemic, but now even more so. What is the first and foremost piece of communication now? Technology.
Mm-hmm.
Technology. Everything. Look what we're doing. Typically we'd be, well, maybe not always, but pre-pandemic, we would all meet in person, sit around a table, have a group, whatever. Now everything is based on technology. And where I'm going with that is not all the people that I work with and serve, I'm sure you've experienced this too, you and Aaron as well. Not everybody has internet access. Not everybody has a computer. Not everybody has a laptop. Technology is what has brought us all together.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, the clients that I have either have a cell phone that can text you, or some have internet to where they can get on email. Some don't. Some don't have video phones at home where they can communicate with each other. But so it's been a struggle. Yeah, that's been a trauma for them of how to communicate and stay in touch with family members, employers, whatever. The list goes on.
So how have you taken care of Bill? Hearing that, knowing what your deaf culture is going through, carrying this and being afraid yourself with what's going on. How did you take care of yourself carrying all of this?
I reach out to people that understand me and talk, share. I've leaned on a lot of people this last year. And in fact, I can add to this tonight's format that you all invited me. It's been an honor to be on here. It really has lifted me up. So this here helps me feel good, helps me feel a part of things. If I can extend a hand and advise anybody, if anybody takes away anything from this, that makes me feel good. And that's part of my wellness, of me taking care of me and feeling good about what I'm doing. So I live alone. I don't have a partner. I don't have a wife, husband, whatever. I mean, so it's tough. And like I said, I reach out to my friends and my family and my uh, to keep in touch. But it's through technology. If it's not the cell phone, it's this,
Yeah.
and that's all I got now. Hopefully we'll get through this. Hopefully it'll get better, and it is. It seems to be. I got hopes. I pray on it, and but that's the best I can do right now. That and a cigarette and a cup of coffee.
I love it. Thank you, Bill. Aaron, take it away.
I just want to say that's the trifecta, right, Bill? Wear a cigarette and a cup of coffee. That's the trifecta. Bill, I just want to also say real quickly that not only have you really blessed me this evening, just there's a connectivity. I hate bullies too, and everybody that knows me knows that I have a disdain for bullies. Verbal, physical, I don't like bullies. So I just wanted to be able to give you an amen on
Amen. That's a sign for amen. Amen.
And we're going to talk about and ask you to do some signing for us in just a moment. I just want to cover some things real quickly on vicarious trauma. And so Lisa has taught us, and she always shares the vicarious trauma. When you sum it up, it's the cost of loving people. And so we see the symptoms of vicarious trauma, and there's probably more, but generally through how their responses are emotionally, cognitively, from behaviors, how our body responds, our physical responses, and spiritually. For you, as you think about the things that your parents went through in your nurturing, as you and your brother grew up in that household of so much love, but which had its own challenges, for you, the vicarious trauma of watching your parents trying to navigate outside of their community as they had to embrace, where would you say that you felt the greatest impact of any traumas? Would it be emotional, cognitively, behavioral, physical, spiritual, all to one? What would you say?
God, that's a hard one to pick, Aaron. Good question, though. If I had to pick one of those, could you run that by me one more time? What are
Absolutely. Would you say that from an emotional standpoint, did it affect thinking as far as how, from a cognitive standpoint, behaviors, physical, where there's some physical repercussions or physical effects, just dealing from trauma, resulting from trauma, vicarious trauma, or spiritual? How did you absorb their pain, or how did you absorb their lifestyle? How did you absorb their difficulties?
Spiritual? But I want to add one thing. I think that the one thing I struggled with the most growing up with mom and dad and with just society in general, and how society views a person with a disability, whether it be deaf or physical or whatever, is, and I'm sure you all can relate to this, it's not a good place to be when you feel misunderstood. And when someone doesn't understand, that's a tough place to be. Everybody wants to feel understood. Everybody wants to feel, they're a part of this whole scheme of things, of the greater good. Everybody wants to feel a part of it. But when you're misunderstood, you're not always included. So I think there were a lot of times mom and dad probably felt like they were misunderstood. I felt like I was misunderstood. God knows my brother did, but that's a whole nother topic. I'm just saying, feeling misunderstood, that's not a good place to be. And we all want to be a force to reckon with. We all need to be respected. We all need to be included. We all count, damn it. We all count.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
That's just my piece.
My friend, we're cut from the same cloth. Everybody counts. Everybody
damn
counts.
Right. Everybody counts, right.
So when we talk about the process of recovery, and recovery is not only possible, it's probable, right? And so there are processes to recover from trauma also, and specifically talking about vicarious trauma. Just want to breeze through these. One, to acknowledge your experience, and we heard you do that tonight, and we probably could go on, right? To talk about those to identify the symptoms. You just talked about the spiritual aspect of symptoms that show themselves through vicarious trauma. Everybody does count, Bill. To foster healthy relationships is part of the process, right? To build the support networks that you want around yourself that help you, that can feed you, but also that you can feed, because we all bring something to the table. And then Lisa asked you about this last one, and that she brought up to focus on your own needs. And I always find that to be the most important out of all of them. They're all important, but to focus on your own needs, to be able to make sure. It's hard to care for others when we're not caring for self. Right. And so that's how we sum up vicarious trauma. We're running a little bit behind, but there are a couple of things that we want to do. Lisa, I want to bring you back on to say goodnight to everybody. Talk about Warm Line, if you would, and our last check-in with our chat community.
All right. Well, we if you've heard anything tonight, anything at all, we are a bunch of people that really care and have lots of lived experience. And Bill gave us another view through someone's eyes, maybe things we didn't even think about. But we have a Warm Line that's 24/7 confidential. It's PRN, and it's all peer support specialists, people who have lived experience, and they're here to listen. Kind of help process things, sometimes just to listen. Sometimes all we need is a warm ear connected to a warm heart. And that's what you'll find with our Warm Line. So please write this number down, 833-390-7728. Keep it with you, pass it along, share this to others that you might find this helpful, just to have someone to talk to.
All right, Give the front desk a little love, Lisa.
Yeah, Miss Kim Porter in the house, our front desk lady. She is our grand lady, that's for sure. Front desk, we still are operating. If you need peer support, you want to find out more about PRN, you want to talk to Aaron Wells, or me. Just give us a call at 704-390-7709, and Miss Kim will make sure she gets you to the right person, that's for sure, or give you the right information that you're needing. Absolutely. We have Mr. Eric Matt says the world needs more bills. Thank you for enlightening me. Absolutely.
Thank you, Eric. That's very kind of you. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Ashley's telling us that thank you all. She enjoyed it. So thank you, Ashley, for coming on. Ashley was our co-worker for many years. She retired and went on to bigger and better things, living the high life. So maybe one day, Bill, you and I will join her. It'll be a while.
Amen. Yes.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Lisa K. Bill, I just want to tell you that I concur with Eric. We are so blessed and humbled that you came on to hang out with us tonight. Such a connectivity oftentimes. And again, for me, it was the discovery of just the thought that there are two languages, right? Mm-hmm. And that when we really dig in, that's pretty much what separates us so often, right? So whether it's verbal, whether it's sign, it's the issue of being able to communicate that we're all one. We all go through ups, we all go through downs, we all have needs, and that our commonalities clearly outweigh our differences. And if we would focus on our starting points, we would be able to build this thing a whole lot better. And I thank you for that. I thank you for your parents, the love and the support, and the fact that they launched you to become this wonderful person that you and I'm sure your brother are. And thank you, Lisa, for introducing us who didn't know Bill to the wonderful Bill Cruz. And so, Bill, I thank you. Bill, any last words from you, Bill? But if you can speak to us in sign as you tell us what they are.
Oh, I can't thank you all enough for the honor of me joining this tonight. It's really uplifted me, and I really appreciate it. So this is a universal sign for I love you. So y'all need to remember this sign. You can do it one-handed or two-handed, doesn't matter. But never forget that sign.
Yeah.
Everybody around the world knows that one.
Exactly.
No, it's been an honor. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I need the reminders myself. So there's a takeaway for me tonight. So I thank you guys. I think y'all are phenomenal. What you guys do, what you offer, how you connect with people. It's a beautiful thing. We need more of this. And my dad used to tell me the world needs more love, and the only way to do this is to communicate it. So my hat's off to you guys. So thank you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Through the Eyes of Others with Aaron and Lisa K and Bill, conversations about emotional residue that many people are experiencing as a result of watching real life being lived right in front of us. Thank you so much for tonight. We love you. We'll see you next week with more compelling conversation that we will see the world through the eyes of others. So we talk to you soon, a week from right now. Love you. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.